I'd point to Oregon. Does anybody remember Oregon's first couple of games last season? Boise State gave them a run for their money. FCS Idaho nearly beat them at Oregon at Autzen Stadium.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Penn State beats FIU 34-0. They beat Nevada 46-11. Well, it wasn't 56-11. Well, it wasn't 41-0. So therefore, this team is not national championship caliber. Okay, that's fine. I can understand being critical. Here's where a lot of this stems from, the criticism, because again, I don't let the simple miscues define my interpretation of the team, of the player. That is not going to make me cast an overall judgment, again, as I pointed out multiple times. I think the Penn State fans or people that cover the team, whether that's through social media or, through actual credentialed outlets, there is skepticism. We've been let down before. People that just, I want Penn State to do well, okay? But as a podcast host covering the team, I'm not going to I can't go cheer in the stands for them, right? But I want them to do well. And when I was a fan of them, I've been disappointed, and so have all of you. Oh, they're so close to knocking off Ohio State in 2017. Nope. Oh, 2018. Nope. Well, surely they'll pick back up and they'll get it right. You got the 5-star quarterback. Nope. So the same movie has played out too many times against Penn State. And this is where all this stems from, that basic mistakes against FIU or not having that same dominant victory, therefore lead to, well, they're just going to be 10-2 again. They're not going to beat Oregon. They're not going to beat Ohio State. That's what that frame of mind is. So, and that's understandable when James Franklin teams have not delivered on those games that fans just say, please, one time. SMU doesn't count. Boise State doesn't count. They don't. Everyone looks to Notre Dame and Oregon and Ohio State most recently, and then Ohio State and Michigan. Those bowl games don't count. Even though they're impressive. Penn State has plenty of bowl wins in a James Franklin tenure. They don't matter to most fans. When everybody talks about the big games and that Penn State can't win the big game, we don't classify those bowl games where Penn State is favored. We don't classify SMU and Boise State in that same category because they were favored. That's what they were expected to do. We expected them to beat a top 10 team because we knew they were better than them. When it's a toss-up, when they're an underdog, Penn State fans have been let down too many times over the course of the past decade. So it's understandable, from my point of view, to look at it and say, that concerns me, that makes me cautious. Oregon almost put up 70 points against Oklahoma State. The same movie is starting to play all over again. Maybe it does, because that's a possibility. There's a possibility that Penn State loses to Oregon. I think Penn State should be and stay favored against Oregon. Again, my opinion of Ohio State has changed, so my confidence level in that game has gone towards the Buckeyes. Again, that's a toss-up in my mind. If Penn State's playing its best on that given day, they can win. There's not significant differences that make me say, oh, Ohio State's going to win by 2 touchdowns, or even if they're not at their best, Penn State's going to lose more often than not. No, that is truly a 50-50 game in my mind. Against Oregon, it's not a 50-50 game, but it's starting to trend back towards that. I thought that was, okay, this is a strong Penn State victory. They should win decisively. Oregon's changing my opinion a little bit there, but not too much. I think Penn State wins that game. Again, out of 100 times, probably 60, 70 of them, 7 out of 10 times, Okay, to simplify it. That's how I'm looking at those. All right, let's get back into the comments. I've rambled so much, and it's a lot to it. It's good because I just kind of get to, throw out all the stuff that's in my brain to talk about this from the storylines and the matchup perspective. Okay, so this one, I talked about this with Zane, just kind of on and off the air. We might have mentioned it in the immediate post game recap. That ball went right through Khalil Dinkin's hands. That was not Drew Allar. That was right where it needed to be. He threw it over. He had to hover it over the linebacker because the linebacker would have tipped it and might have intercepted it. It was an easy. It wasn't an easy, but it was a routine catch for Dinkins. He did not make the play. He needed to make the play. His passes are just prayers for a pass interference. You could look at it that way to an extent. When going back to our moonball discourse, that's what that's Penn State is looking for. That they want to give the receiver an opportunity, a greater opportunity to come down with the football, because hey, here's what that tells me. That means they trust Kaytron Hudson, they trust Trevor Peña, and they trust Devontae Ross to go win that 50-50 battle on a 40, 50, 60-yard deep pass. They would rather have an underthrow as opposed to an overthrow. I think of some plays where Amari Evans was running wide open, and I know Amari Evans is at Washington right now, but when he was wide open, Penn State or Drew would still underthrow it, because then it now becomes a touchdown. It's a guaranteed touchdown by letting him sit and wait for the football as opposed to an accidental overthrow, and then you get no points out of it. So that's what Penn State is trying to scheme or coach up in what they're doing. Let's see. Singleton has missed at least 3 big runs in this game. He is not seeing the blocking in the running lanes. Good. No, he's not seeing them as well. I actually have some thoughts on that. So I'm glad I found that comment because I saw it was earlier. I kind of scroll up and down to make sure that I don't miss anything. And this episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business are available. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on a job where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back. We all couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. Nothing else like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices, jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, you see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And you can get Penn State football tickets available on Game Time. If you've never been to Beaver Stadium before, you can go into Game Time and select your seats. You will see a point of view ahead of time, so you're not second guessing yourself. You're not wondering, did I make the right decision with these tickets? So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So I already kind of put my 2 cents out there as far as why are Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton not picking up where they left off with the playoff run. Stan Drayton. And I don't mean that as a point of fault. I mean that as a point of transition. When Abdul Carter moved to defensive end, and he had 2 awful games in week 1 and week 2, and everybody said, move him to linebacker. Penn State needs linebacker help. Abdul Carter, the defensive end experiment. It's failed. It's done. It's over with. Pack it in. Okay. And then Abdul Carter eventually became the best edge rusher in college football and a top 3 NFL draft pick. Okay. I'm not trying to project that for Singleton and Allen, but I do want to point out that a change in coaching. So this needs to be emphasized more, that Stan Drayton is reteaching. Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen are somewhat relearning the running back position, and there is a significant knowledge gap that they need to close because they are really good athletes. They are really good running backs, but they're not necessarily the best versions of themselves as football players. So that is the bridge that Stan Drayton is trying to build with Singleton and Allen. That is going to take time. So the same experiment with Abdul Carter Rome wasn't built in one day. That was going to take, look how quickly it went from, okay, 2 games, we need to move him back, to after 4, it was, whoa, this is the best decision ever. This is the same type of experience where I think Singleton is going to take a few steps back, and Kaytron Allen, to an extent, we haven't seen it as much so far, but they're going to regress a little bit to spring that much further forward. Sometimes you have to take a couple steps back to move more forward, and that's how I'm looking at this. Singleton and Allen did not get worse. They did not become bad football players. They are learning and working on new things that are only going to make them better, but they're going to go through growing pains to get to that better version of themselves. That's how I view it. Stan Drayton is a mastermind when it comes to coaching running backs. He's been a part of multiple national championship teams. You don't have all the time in the world, but I trust that he will be able to crack the code and it will click. It's just another light switch in the head of Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen for them to reach their full maximum potential. So Singleton's working through some things. He will see it on film, because how did Singleton get worse? How did he take a step backward? He trains every single day. He's not getting worse. He's working through new elements of the running back position that he's never had before with J1 Sider. And that was the hope, that if they brought in somebody like Stan Drayton, they would be able to have these types of things. We're over an hour. I'm going to keep going. Why not? Right. But those are my thoughts on Singleton and Allen, not resuming what they had done a season ago. Let's see. At least the young defensive line players look good. Chaz Coleman and Eni White with their first sacks. Did I miss something with White? Maybe that's just, I didn't know if he got his first sack with Penn State. Oh, he did. Okay, so I missed that. Maybe I was going down to the tunnel when that happened. But that's my point, is Eni White is giving you production when none of us knew if he was going to be able to even be a rotational contributor this season. And he's performing above expectations. Chaz Coleman is performing above expectations. Probably internally, both internally at Penn State and then externally with, the media and fans alike. That's what I'm seeing, because I did not have any expectations for White this season. And so and I don't mean that to be so critical and so harsh, but I did not see him racking up these stats because I thought, hey, a move to defensive tackle, how's that going to work out? He's never played that. He's coming off an injury season at Texas A&M. He's moving over from defensive end. What's going on? And now we're seeing that this was the correct move, similar to an Abdul Carter. Similar move, right? Switch positions, become a better player kind of thing. Okay, I agree. Remember in the second quarter when Hudson made a huge block and the offensive line blew the whole left side up and Singleton went outside for 7 yards when he should have cut inside. That's also something that's refreshing. I take mostly that Kyron Hudson is a really good blocker away from that. You need that on the boundaries. Wide receiver blocking was abysmal in 2023, which is why Penn State didn't have the success it could have in the ground game and ultimately led. I mean, there were a lot of elements there, but part of it led to the demise of Mike Yurcich because he couldn't scheme around that. He couldn't coach around that. So Kyron Hudson's a breath of fresh air in the fact that, and same thing with Trevor Peña, that they will lay a block. They are good at run blocking. If you look at his reaction after, so we're back to the Drew Allar swing pass. If you look at his reaction after the pass, it definitely looks like it was Drew's fault. It looks like he was trying to short arm it for accuracy, like he's afraid to just throw the football. Again, we're going to look at it two different ways. I look at that, the way I actually translate it myself is, I'm a fourth-year quarterback, you're a fourth-year running back, we need to be on the same page. That's how I translate that, as, oh my goodness, we just missed an easy third down conversion. Who knows, maybe a touchdown, at the minimum of an explosive play, because we are not on the same page for a 5-yard pass. This isn't a wheel route down the sideline in double coverage. This is a wide open swing pass 5 yards away. Why don't we have this figured out when we've been on the same team for 4 years? That's how I interpret that. Well, then Franklin needs to be gone. It is a coaching issue when your team doesn't, but it's just kind of, I think you're referring to back that Penn State isn't getting up for the likes of FIU compared to an Oregon and other teams within the Big Ten. Like, it's just kind of it's just the natural attrition of college football. We're not in a situation where no one's made a comment about Florida. Again, Florida, I know we're comparing Penn State as a national title contending team to Florida as nothing now. Looking for a new head coach, probably sooner rather than later. And so it's apples to oranges, but no situation like that where Penn State is on upset watch. We're critiquing a performance that could have and should have been better. Let's see. I like James Franklin, but his going for it on fourth down during the first drive deep inside our own territory is just dumb. He's still stuck in Vanderbilt. Will he do the same against Oregon? I don't know if he's still stuck in Vanderbilt. That's how I read that. That's how I read that comment. I hope that I'm interpreting that correctly. You trust your defense in that situation? Do they need to punt? This episode is brought to you by The Game. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be The Game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and in the 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price that they did all the way back then. That is right. When you use code LOCKEDON, that is code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Again, code LOCKEDON. All you got to do is head over to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's exclusive bar or retro circle design and use that code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. They gave up 0 points. Does Penn State? You want your offense on the football field. Why would you want to willingly give FIU back the football? Against Oregon, completely different story. Punt that football away and pin them inside the 10. Okay? But when you know you are that much better than FIU, you can do those things. You're allowed to go for it on fourth down at the 50 or at your own 45, whatever have you, because you know, okay, my defense is going to figure it out anyway. We're not going to give up any points, and if we do, we'll get it back. Right decision. Totally agree with what James Franklin saying. Yeah, we go for, because it didn't lead to anything negative. It didn't lead to a bad play. It didn't lead to more points for FIU. Penn State's defense stopped them, and that's why James Franklin did what he did, because he knew, okay, my defense is going to take care of it. So I can try a couple different things. I can tell Andy Kotelnicki, hey, do what you want here. Do you want to go for it on fourth down? Do you have a play call? James isn't, and again, there's I won't spend too much time on this because I see more comments and I want to continue some other conversations, around this. But James Franklin isn't meddling as much as people will be led to believe. He makes he will talk to Kotelnicki, but there's not all this time to say, I want you to run this play, go for it on fourth down. It's, hey Andy, talk to me. Do you have a play for fourth down right now? Because if you can, we'll go for it. Yes. Okay. It's all you. That's that communication. It's not, I want you to run this play with this player and do this. There's 25 seconds for them to do that. So there's just not as much Franklin meddling as you think there is in certain aspects of the game. There are times where Penn State's been outcoached. I understand that, but it's not this all or nothing. Oh, it's all Franklin's fault. It's all this, it's all that. No, that's not it. That's not entirely the case. There's a lot of other nuances that make it one way, but we can only cast judgment on, did this happen? Yes or no? I think it just ruins the deep ball opportunities, to be honest. See, some of the comments come in late, so I'm not sure what that's ultimately referring to. My apologies. If you want to add some clarity, if you're still in the live chat, Alex, please feel free to add some clarity to that. So you're telling me the generational talent with an amazing arm isn't trusted to throw a deep ball because I see plenty of QBs making those throws. I mean, he's trusted to throw the deep ball. He hit Devontae Ross in the back of the end zone today. He hit Kyron Hudson a week ago. They know. It's a high percentage play. That's how I look at it. It is a higher percentage play to give the receiver an opportunity to come down with the football as opposed to him chasing it. Okay. That's how Penn State's looking at it. Again, I said that it will disgruntle Penn State fans. They're not going to like that. And I get it. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do differently to say what they're wrong. They shouldn't do that. They can't do that. It hasn't led to an interception. At least I don't think it has. Point back to where the Drew Allar moon ball hasn't led to either it's an incomplete pass, it's a heck of a catch by a receiver, or it's a touchdown, or it's a pass interference. It's not leading to turnovers, and that's what Penn State's trying. Penn State is trying to do specific things. Win the penalty battle, win the explosive play battle, win the turnover battle. That goes into the turnover battle because it's a high percentage play to where you don't turn the football over. Trying to see. Coaching was sloppy. Again, the game plan was very vanilla, and this team came out flat. So yes, that's on coaching and that's on senior leadership. They should have been better. We do. Yes, we can all agree that and that's what Penn State's trying to do in this non-conference schedule, build the depth because we know what the starters can do. Chaz Coleman is a player. He is a dude. He's 18 years old and he's been playing defensive end for maybe a collective total of 9 months. He did not enroll early. For Coleman to be at this point in time speaks volumes to Coleman as a player and his potential. Deion Barnes as the defensive line coach. And Jalen Harvey did improve. I will agree with that. Jalen Harvey showed me more this week than he did last week. I have confidence and optimism for Jalen Harvey. I definitely think the line played better today, made some great holes for the running backs to hit, but they seem to be missing those holes a little today. Singleton in particular. I think that Allen had 144 rushing yards. He did great. He did phenomenal. And Singleton almost averaged 6 yards per carry. That's not going to matter to people because of a couple missed opportunities for bigger chunk plays, but he didn't have a terrible day. And neither of them fumbled. Again, we're focusing on some small miscues here and there that can be corrected and we're not looking at glaring issues like fumbleitis or things like that. They had 30 carries for 209 yards for 6.7 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. And if you take out Drew Allar, the Singleton and Allen combined for 29 carries for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a darn good day to me. That's a great day. Okay. He missed one rushing lane. It's kind of, at that point, it's like, so what? Like they're still doing the things that they're expected to do. Drew seemed to be staring down one player today a lot instead of going through his reads in the first half, and the offense seemed to be lacking fire. They're playing flat a lot and no physicality. Again, that goes back to that Penn State, I just think, has bigger fish to fry. They know what's at stake here. A Big Ten championship is on the table, a college football playoff national title berth on the table. You got to beat Oregon. You got to beat Ohio State. I get the 1-0 mantra. I do, but Oregon, you have that in a few weeks. Let's point to some of the positives here, right? Penn State is 2-0. Penn State is still in the running for a national title. Penn State is not injured. We're not talking about any injuries. How does the depth chart look? When's this player going to come back? Is Penn State going to be able to? We're not talking about any of that. Penn State turned the ball over. This issue. No. We are criticizing miscues from a shutout and a 46-11 win over Nevada in week 1. So I like this. This is easy. This is stress-free. All of this is stress-free. Oh, Penn State, hey, let's critique some details here and there from a 34-0 game. Okay. My counterpart at Locked On Gators is probably going through it right now. Oh my goodness. We don't have that. We don't have that issue. We can say, hey, they got to be better. They got to clean this up here and there. I'll have those conversations every single day of the week because I know it means that Penn State is moving in the right direction. This team's moving in the right direction. For the most part, again, I know Max Granville's not available, Caden Saunders, and Josiah Brown, and I'm sure there's probably some other select reserve players that we just don't know about because they don't play a lot, but the starters are all healthy. This group is winning. They're winning the games, and they're in a good position to go up against the likes of Ohio State and Oregon. We'll see what ultimately happens on game day, but Penn State is in that position.